Okay. Good morning, everybody. It is December 22nd. This is Cashflow Guys TV, and today we're going to talk about lots of things, but we're also going to talk a little bit about Bitcoin, arbitrage, that type of thing, different ways to make your money work for you, what's going on out there in the marketplace. And I've got a little video for you guys to watch. I saw it on Facebook, and it just cracked me up. So I wanted to go ahead and kick off with that. So bear with me 1 second. Let me get this operational here. All right. You guys should be able to see my screen now. Let's see here. Here we go.
Yeah, I have Bitcoin, and you should too. If you would have bought
Can you guys hear it? Okay, good.
Bitcoin 3 months ago, you'd have tripled your money by now. You're so stupid for not buying it then. Every conversation I have, I'm telling people to buy Bitcoin. And when I'm not doing that, I'm professing my Bitcoin prophecies on social media. Being a Bitcoin advocate is like the veganism of the financial world. You'll find out where I stand on the matter within 11 seconds of meeting me. And you'll find yourself being appropriately belittled if you don't feel the same way about it. Let me explain how Bitcoin works. People worry when there's no gold behind money. But you don't have to worry about that with Bitcoin, because not only is there no gold behind it, there's no anything else behind it either. So technically it's nothing. But because the good-hearted anonymous people behind Bitcoin release only a limited amount of this nothing, it's worth something. Scarcity is what makes anything valuable. So with Bitcoin, scarcity is what makes nothing valuable as well. Another instrumental part of Bitcoin is the blockchain. It's a ledger that keeps track of Bitcoin and keeps everyone accountable. The blockchain helps cut out the third party of banks that you have with normal money transactions. So it's like a third party that cuts out the other third party, because we don't need a third party in our exchange of rare and precious digital currencies. The genius behind Bitcoin is it's an alternative currency to money, which means next to Bitcoin, money doesn't really matter anymore. So the beautiful part about putting your money into Bitcoin is that the value of your money, which doesn't matter anymore, goes up, while the amount of Bitcoin you have, which does matter, stays the same. Now with Bitcoin, I'm all of a sudden the most qualified financial advisor I know. My strong history of no track record and wealth accumulation has given me the experience I need to recognize a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get rich the easy way, by investing in Bitcoin. And it's given me the ability to tell everyone I know about it. There's a rule in the investment world you can bank on with Bitcoin. What goes up never comes down. In the history of Bitcoin, it's never crashed, so it never will. Let me give you a tip. The best way to diversify your portfolio is to put all your money in Bitcoin. There's virtually no risk. Trying to convince everyone around me to buy Bitcoin also makes me feel more justified in my decision to buy it. Oh, this just in. You should buy Bitcoin. I do a lot of Bitcoin shaming. That's when I go on Facebook and post things like, if you would have bought Bitcoin last week like I said, you would have doubled your money by now. Teaches my friends a painful lesson for not listening to me. I mean, how stupid are they? They deserve to know, and I enjoy telling them through passive-aggressive statements about Bitcoin's progress that has nothing to do with its upward trajectory and everything to do with me feeling better about myself by shaming them. The one concern I have about Bitcoin is in listening to billionaires and experts who say, be cautious about Bitcoin. They don't know a thing about getting rich with Bitcoin because they've made billions with money, not Bitcoin. Because I've never made any degree of wealth or had more than 2 months worth of rent in the bank at any one time means I'm untainted by success with money. And that's exactly what makes me convinced that people should listen to my advice about Bitcoin instead of the experts. My extensive training as an investment advisor involves seeing that Bitcoin's in a lot of headlines now. And I translate that to mean I should buy Bitcoin because I'm easily influenced by headlines. In the best way possible. Bitcoin's clearly our future, and our present, and probably even our past. It's completely irresponsible not to be obsessed with Bitcoin. The doors of my membership community are going to open again soon, so jump on the wait list now to get in at awakenwithjp.com/subscribe.
You guys enjoy that? I got a tickle out of it. I got a big kick out of it. But those things make me giggle. What can I say? So welcome, everybody. I wanted to kind of kick off with that. Number one, because I thought it was hilarious. And it's Christmas time. Why shouldn't you be in a good mood? It just still cracks me up to even think about it. I just love how with this whole Bitcoin thing, everybody's suddenly an expert. You got, everybody's a financial planner. You got somebody like Dave, who actually is a professional financial planner, actually knows what he's talking about. He's here on the call with us, compared to some 20-year-old kid that saw a YouTube video on it and suddenly they're planning their millions. Now, granted, at full disclosure, I've got some money invested in crypto as well, but at the end of the day, like I said, I think it was last week, a week before, I'm only investing what I can afford to lose, and I'm testing it out. I've also invested in things at garage sales and then resold them, and I've bought properties and then resold them. I've bought all kinds of things and resold them, but I just find it interesting. What really fascinates me about the Bitcoin thing is how passionate people are about it. People are losing their minds about this Bitcoin. I mean, I've had people like attacking each other on Facebook about it. You're stupid. No, you're stupid. It's like, what? It's a virtual thing. I can pick up this pad of paper, but I can't touch a virtual thing. I just don't understand where the emotion comes from. I think it comes from something that has nothing to do with Bitcoin or any of the other cryptocurrencies. But anyway, it doesn't matter to me whether you invest in Bitcoin or not. It's no different than investing in, I don't know, used furniture. It's just somebody's willing to pay more for it. You can buy it low and sell high. Great. What scares me, though, is that people are actually mortgaging their houses to buy Bitcoin. That's kind of like, Bitcoin is, to me, and a lot of these investments is kind of like playing the stock market. I just did the episode this week with the expert Mark Hopkins. He says in the episode that he's not an expert. Well, here's what I'm figuring out. I haven't found anybody that really is. Who really is an expert in Bitcoin? I don't really think anybody truly understands it. So when people don't understand it, they fear it. It's like real estate investing. People don't realize how we can buy property and have other people live there and make a profit and not pay taxes, or pay reduced taxes anyway. So when people fear something, it's usually because they don't understand it. So sometimes by helping people understand it, we can get over the fear. And one of the reasons I bring this up is the holidays are here, right? So today's the 22nd. This weekend at some point, Monday, whatever, you'll be getting together with family. You may choose to share that you either want to be or are a real estate investor. And that may come with some scrutiny from friends and family, because people fear what they don't understand. It's a shame that we don't get the support sometimes that we should in our endeavors, but that unfortunately is reality in life. So I ask you, if you truly want to be financially free, guys, don't let the pressures of friends and family this holiday season spoil your parade, because investing in real estate and buying low and selling high, these are time-tested things, folks. I just had somebody ask me, who's a member of our upcoming mastermind. He just emailed me a few minutes ago, and he asked me for my opinion on the tax bill. And this goes along with what I was saying about people's opinions and not being an expert. One thing I'm not an expert in is taxes. I've only got so much brain capacity, and there's no room for taxes. That I assure you. I've looked at the tax code once online. The scroll bar was like this big, and I'm not interested. Read some books on the topic, but I'm not an expert. I'm not a CPA, and I won't give tax advice. But that's not the advice that I gave. What I gave is an introduction to my CPA, Charles Shapiro. Said, hey, you want to know how and his question was, how does the tax bill apply to me as a future investor? The answer is, I don't know. I don't care. I'm not worried about that. And this is what I want you to think about. These things are things, and I know that, oh, you got to focus on all this stuff. You got to watch what's going on. Well, number one, I have no control over what goes on in Washington. None. I don't care if you vote, don't vote, doesn't matter. You don't have any control. Nobody really has any control. It's a collective group effort. In other words, Trump has no control over anything. Had Hillary been elected, she wouldn't have control over anything either. The president's not in control. That's just a figurehead. Congress, the Senate, all these different lobbyists, influencers, they all have control. So unless you can outspend them, really, you can't do anything about it. And this isn't a political conversation. It's just it's a mindset issue. So when I see those questions, I think, I know a lot of people are getting wound up on Facebook about the tax bill. Either they're celebrating or they're freaking out. At the end of the day, guys, that doesn't change the fact that the code is written to teach you how not to pay tax. If you simply hire somebody that knows what they're doing, I just had this conversation with my future son-in-law yesterday when they were at the closing table for their new property. Stop doing your own taxes. Told him, I said, I am actually going to kick your ass if you do your own taxes involving my daughter this year. I'm just going to kill you. That's how it's going to work out. Because my daughter's not going to have IRS issues because you were watching something on Facebook while doing your 1040 EZ form. Blech. You're a property owner. Take advantage of these things now. Start thinking. So guys, this year, what I would be doing, your New Year's resolution should be to find an incredible tax professional. I love Charles Shapiro, mainly because he makes me laugh, but he's also really good at taxes. He's the one that sent me that video. The thing about Charles, and this is not a commercial for Charles necessarily, I don't get anything at all for referring him. Nothing, not a penny. And if I did, I would tell you. But Charles owns rental property. He gets it because he's like us. He's an investor. He gets it. He totally understands it because he owns property. He's laser focused on the little piece of the big, massive tax law that applies to him as an investor. It would be unreasonable to expect a CPA who's not a doctor to be laser focused on the tax law, on how it applies to doctors, nurses, attorneys, ditch diggers, pilots. It's not possible for one person to have all that knowledge. I'm sorry, but it's not. Let's not kid ourselves. So for me, I prefer to work with people who do what I do whenever possible, especially with taxes. Charles owns a whole bunch of rental properties. He knows the tax law as it relates to real estate investors better than anybody I've met, maybe with the exception of Mark Kohler, who's a tax attorney. So he's like a one step more as far as education experience, maybe. But even that remains, that's up for debate. They're both experts at their craft. So this year I'm having Charles do my taxes because he's really gets it. I mean, he showed me everything that my current tax preparer wasn't necessarily doing the way he thought would do. But the more important thing is he sat me down and educated me on why he was making those suggestions. And also he sat down and he asked me a lot of questions. Now, have you guys ever heard me say this before? 70-30 rule. Charles sat me down and asked me a ton of questions. Didn't make any assumptions until he asked me a bunch of questions. So folks, when we're sitting down talking to sellers or buyers or whatever, private money folks, we need to be asking questions. Now, I walked away from that meeting knowing that Charles cares what's going on with me because he took the time to ask questions. He didn't make assumptions. Like the seller would never, Andy will never accept this offer. It's too low. You don't know that. You have no idea what's going on with Andy. So how can we assume what Andy's going to do? You see, the true professionals are the one that ask tons of questions. The cryptocurrency thing. I've been asking tons of questions on cryptocurrency from everybody I can find. I ran across this guy, Mark Hopkins, who admittedly says he's not an expert. Nice guy. We had a great conversation. But if you listen to the episode, the answers were so deep. I got done with the interview. I'm like, I don't think I'm any smarter than I was when I started. Nothing against him. It's just that this is a topic that's the whole cryptocurrency thing is, I don't know, maybe some things are just beyond me, like taxes. I hired Charles to be the smart guy in the room. I don't need to be an expert in taxes because I got Charles and Charles's team, right? I don't necessarily need to be an expert in Bitcoin. I'm not convinced there is an expert in Bitcoin, but I don't necessarily need to be an expert in Bitcoin. But what I do understand is that I have a amount of money that I'm okay losing. It's like going to play slot machines, right? You pump the quarters in the machine or dollars or whatever you're doing, and you're rolling the dice to see if you're going to win or lose. That's not necessarily that, in my opinion, that's not investing, guys. That's speculating. The money I have in cryptocurrency is completely a speculation play. There is no residual. There's no, I could maybe hit pay dirt and be a billionaire tomorrow, or it could all go away. For me, because we're conservative and Jill and I are conservative in what we do, as soon as we doubled our money, which happened pretty quick in about 2-3 weeks, we pulled all of our initial investment back out. So I have $0 invested in that right now. Okay, I took all that money that it was like 10 grand total. I got to 20, I got to like 22, and I'm like, oh boy, we're pulling back. I pulled that 10 grand out, set it aside, put it back where it belongs, right? And I'm going to invest it in something that I do firmly understand. One of the things, little strategies that we've been working on kind of behind the scenes is smaller purchases of affordable housing, right? Here's what I feel, and this is totally a speculation on my part, okay? But it's rooted in fact. Here's what I do know. The economy changes every day, right? Money is easy to get right now. It's everywhere. Interest rates are almost non-existent. So when things shift, right now, there's a big problem with poverty in America, as we know. I mean, there's broke people everywhere. And I never really paid attention to it until I've started marketing, products like this mastermind, for example. I priced it so that everybody could get in. And now I've limited the number of people that can get in and I had to cap it. But uh, I'm shocked how many people don't have $1,500. How that $1,500 is breaking them. Our society, any sort of logic as it comes to finance is out the window. I don't know what happened because in the 50s, maybe I'm just sucked in by uh, the television shows of the time of the decade. I love like 50s and 60s TV shows, but people went to work, they paid their bills, they got a house, put a white picket fence around it. I don't recall ever hearing any chatter about the extreme poverty. I mean, you got people on public assistance running around with $1,000 iPhone. I don't think that was a thing back in the 50s. I don't think people were buying doodads and crap back in the 50s. Somehow something changed, right? So based on that, I feel there's a huge potential for low income housing. People laughed at me when I started investing in Memphis. People were like, "You're crazy, man. You're going to get eaten up out there." And the people tear the places up, and there's lots of tenant turnover. And yeah, there is. All of those things are true. But what I do know is that the people in the lower income brackets, the people that have no financial discipline, are always going to need low cost housing. Because I can sit there and say, guys, I'm going to be the next Dave Ramsey and change the world. I'm going to teach everybody how to spend their money properly. And then there won't be any need for low income housing. No. There's still going to be lots of broke folk in the world. And I believe that is probably the number one. If I had to guess, I would say that is the number one most underserved market. Nobody wants to invest in the low income stuff, right? Nobody wants to be good at that. Everybody wants the pretty place. Like I have this nice pretty place, and we've got other little smaller buildings that are pretty and cute, and you walk by and you're like, oh, isn't that sweet? And Jill's got everything all color matching and all that. Great. Don't get me wrong. It's great. But in the event when things start to shift again financially, I realize that I'm probably going to lose some of my tenants, and they're going to be replaced by tenants that were probably owned a home and were paying more to live. That's the natural way of things. But to some degree, my logic is if I've got some low income portfolio, which is why I've been really looking at land owned mobile homes, I can get them for a song. And from a cash flow perspective, they're just cash cows. I mean, geez. So being somebody that's a supplier of low income housing, as I've learned from being in low income housing in Memphis, done properly is a home run. I mean, it's an absolute home run. The amount of returns that we get on our buildings is crazy. I mean, it's I look at the spreadsheets, I'm like, there's got to be a law against this. Is nuts. We don't provide stoves and air conditioners, guys, in Memphis. A lot of our properties. No, you don't. If you rent from me, you don't get a stove or an air conditioner. No, you won't. I won't give it to you because I know that you'll sell it. This actually happened to us. See, I didn't listen to my property manager. And I thought, Jill and I were like, oh, we're going to just save the world. And the first two buildings that we bought up there, well, the first building we bought two. It's the first transaction we did in Memphis was two buildings at once. One of the buildings was nicer than the other. So that one we wanted to be the Pied Pipers, right? So like an idiot, I didn't listen to my property manager. I went out and bought all new window air conditioners for these apartments. It didn't even take a week and they were all gone. I mean, every one of them. There was a 10-unit building, 10 air conditioners were gone. I mean, just gone. So I thought somebody must have, stole them all. What the hell? No. 3 of them got stolen. The other 7 were sold by the tenants. You see, to them, an air conditioner means an expensive power bill. They can barely keep the lights on as it is. The last thing they want is to pay for AC. So it made more sense for them to take my brand new air conditioner and sell it for cash than it did to keep it in their own window. It blew my mind. But I had assumed who wouldn't want air conditioning? I mean, I live in Florida. I would cry like a little girl when my air conditioning goes out. My office, hand to God, I've got a window air conditioner behind me in the wall. I don't use that one anymore because it's loud. That was the original one. And now I've got a split system AC. When they asked me, do you want to take the window AC out, Tyler? I said, well, no, because if the split system ever poops out, I won't make it 20 minutes in here without AC. I mean, granted, I've got this thing professionally insulated to be soundproof and the whole 9 yards for the podcast and the video. So it's designed for optimal sound efficiency, but I got to have my air conditioning. So I assumed that my tenants would want the same thing, and come to find out, nothing was farther from the truth. So folks, the low income, and this isn't I don't care what you invest in, it's up to you, but think beyond what you might think to be true and do some research. Here's what I'm discovering, and this is what Jill and I were looking at. We're looking at buying some land with maybe a mobile or 2 on it. And I'm talking about land, I'm talking about, I don't know, 5 to 50, 60 acres. Something where we can have somebody live on the property, pay rent, and cover the expenses. But here's the caveat. We want it to have a water source. Because I'm listening to people like Peter Schiff and Robert Kiyosaki and a lot of these other people that are pretty high-level economists, pretty smart people, talking about buying water features. And the water is kind of the next thing. Now, if you would have said to us, all of you, 20 years ago that you had to buy a bottle of water, would have said that's crazy. Buy a bottle of water. Nobody buys water. You just get it out of the tap. All of us, I think, on this call are old enough to remember drinking out of the tap or the garden hose. Hell, I still do. The point is, to me, that's an investment strategy, because I see that I can provide, if I buy a piece of land and put a couple mobiles on it, I don't necessarily have to call it a park per se, but I can let a few people live there, pay for the property for me. I now own a water source and a stream of income. And I've got options, you see, because right now what I'm figuring out is in Central Florida, at least where we're looking in Levy County and Inglis and places like Dunellen and Crystal River, these outlying areas, there's not a lot of buying pressure. And most everybody wants cash, but the folks are more amenable to terms because they're having a hard time getting their property sold right now. And this is what I'm running across. So we may wind up doing several deals. Is it a departure from our investor identity? Yes. But it's important, guys, that you stay focused on what's going on around you and start responding to market fluctuations. And for us, the big draw is having a water source. Yeah, it's cool to have somebody else pay for the property. Nothing wrong with that. But owning the rights to a water source, like a spring or something like that, there's massive benefit to that, in my opinion. Even though it's not something we might be able to capitalize on now. Like if Devil's Den, which is a dive spot and campground up in Dunellen, Florida, if that ever came up for sale, I would run through rings of fire to buy that place because it's got a beautiful spring and a cavern and a nice campground and the whole 9 yards. I would dial that place in. It would be a cash cow, but that's just me. So anybody have any questions about anything I've talked about or comments you want to add? Think I'm full of crap, anything like that, please raise your hand. Feel free to speak up, say something in the chat, and we'll get you rolling. Oh, one thing. So this morning I was on I do a call with the Kingdom Real Estate, which is a group, basically a paid mentorship group. And they hired me about a year ago. I go in there a couple times a week and offer some guidance and whatnot. And a lot of folks are getting information like, and I want you guys to do the math and tell me if I'm crazy, but I used to be told or under the impression that that I would want to get my mortgage paid off and have my house free and clear as soon as possible, the whole Dave Ramsey thing. And I learned otherwise. When I started doing the math on that and realizing the lost opportunity cost of paying my home mortgage off or paying any of my properties off, I stopped that line of thinking. If you've got credit card debt, and I know some of us, I don't, but some of us probably do from Christmas. If you've got debt sitting out there, and this is simple math lesson. Let's say you've got a credit card with I don't know. They say the national average interest rate for credit cards is 18%. So let's say you've got a credit card with 18% interest and there's a balance on it. I don't care what it is. It could be $1,000, it could be $20,000. God, I hope it's not 20,000 for you, but if you got whatever your balance is, if you've got 18,000 or 18% interest being charged to you every month or annually, or in this case, I think credit cards, it might even be monthly, but whatever your interest rates are, before you get in a big rush to pay your property off by going with like a 15-year mortgage, maybe, just maybe, and I want you to do your own math because everybody's situation is different, but maybe it would make more sense to have a 30-year mortgage with a low interest rate. I just got 3.5% for 30 years. 3.5% for 30 years. That's crazy. I don't ever want to pay that mortgage off. It's going to take 30 years and one day. And I'll probably refinance it again. Why not? This is why I buy for cash flow, guys. Debt is not bad if it's good debt. That's mortgage debt's good debt. Bad debt's credit card debt. So if you are paying extra mortgage payments or on a 15-year mortgage, but you've got credit card debt, you're imbalanced. Don't worry about, take the mortgage out to 30 years, refinance the house, take the mortgage out to 30 years, eliminate that credit card debt. That credit card debt's going to eat you alive. Going to absolutely eat you alive. Fact. So don't get, I mean, I know Dave Ramsey talks about, what does he go on about? Always, buy insurance, pay your mortgage, pay your house off, live debt free. I agree with the live bad debt free, but without debt, guys, it's in today's society, it's impossible to ever build wealth. Really. I mean, you got to use leverage unless you hit the lottery or you come from money and somebody gives you money. Then I guess you could use that to make more money. But that said, oh, let's see who you're getting your advice from. Like we saw in the video, guys, I know this is risky, me saying this, being an influencer myself, but be careful. And this is why I always tell you, go find experts. Everybody's an expert on Facebook, right? Everybody comes to Facebook for their tax advice, for their legal advice, for their Bitcoin investing advice. I mean, I know that we want social proof and we want to check with everybody before we spend money hiring a CPA and all this stuff. Don't do that. It's 2018. It's time to build a power team. Even if you're not part of my mastermind, please build a power team this year. Build a team of trusted experts that are hired guns that will work for you and get you on the right track. Do that. A couple notes I made for the week. Invest only what you can afford to lose. And I want to add a caveat to that. When we did a survey a while back, Beth and I did a survey to everybody in our list. What are your number one fears in real estate investing? The most popular answer was either they're afraid to lose their own money or they're afraid to lose somebody else's. And those are valid concerns. The first dollar of private capital I took on, I was in an absolute panic that I was going to lose that guy's money. It was every penny he's got. I mean, it was his whole retirement plan. So if I blow it, he can't retire. Talk about pressure. And don't think that I'm still not uncomfortable every time I take on investor capital. That feeling is never going to go away, but it's that feeling that keeps me laser focused on always learning more, being conservative, do my math, check it twice, not 10 times, but check it twice. And I hire the best of the best to be on my team because that is my insurance policy against losing somebody else's money or my own. If you have good people around you, then you're never going to have to worry about this. Okay. Then you're going to be fine because the good people around you, your attorneys, your tax professionals, all that, they're going to keep you out of hot water. Okay. That's their job. And if they're not doing that, then they're not the right person for your team. Fact. I don't believe, and a lot of people say this, I don't believe that we are really in a tough market. Because if you are focused on buying problems, and here, this time of year, folks, is probably the best time of year to be out buying property right now. Because people at Christmas time really start to focus on their own problems. They start looking inward. Their annoying kids come over or their grandkids are like eating paint chips and they're thinking, oh God, this is my family. Or the younger folks are thinking, boy, I've got however much credit card debt is a lot, which in my opinion, any credit card debt is a lot. They've got credit card debt. They've got student loan debt. They've got whatever. This is the time of year when people start having these thoughts. So these folks that happen to own property need a solution that you can provide. Maybe they don't need that piece of land that was sitting there doing nothing except costing them taxes. Maybe they don't need that 3-bedroom, 2-bath house when they could really handle it living in a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. Now, it's not our job to tell them that necessarily, but it is our job to let people know that we solve problems and we can help people leverage their real estate to solve other problems they may be having. And this is when I talk about focus on finding problems, not properties. Every single time somebody comes to me with a deal, I don't see a problem. Charles, a wholesaler in our market, I think he's on this call. I don't know if that's you, Charles, at the 580-7601. But if so, just pop your name on there if you would. Charles brought me an opportunity yesterday, I think it was, right here in Tarpon. I know Andy knows about it as well. It's that old tea house over there on Orange, the one that backs up to the Greek church and all that. But anyway, here's a situation where here's a commercial building. It's been a lot of things over the years. It was a boarding house at one point. It's been all kinds of things. Andy, I'm going to unmute you because I'm curious your take on it. And Charles. But my impression of that building is there's an unmotivated seller. He's asking $500,000 for this thing.
Yeah.
He's been for sale for, I don't know, a decade.
As long as I can remember. Yeah.
So.
Oh, you're familiar?
Yeah, everybody is, man. In Tarpon, that thing.
Oh, okay.
that's probably like the most popular property around because everybody wants to do something with it, but the city, there was a fire there a while back,
Yeah.
and the city is not a fan. The city of Tarpon Springs is kind of a strange bird. Andy knows this. He's well connected in Tarpon as well. The city of Tarpon, I think it needs a bulldozer, in my opinion. I think the city would get behind a bulldozer. Now, I know it's got historical designations, or they're trying to get historical designations and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is the city is not willing to help that project get fixed. So that guy needs to understand. And Charles, you can help him with this, the seller. This is an opportunity for you. So let's see how you work with this.
Okay.
Here's a seller that doesn't really know. He's totally fixed on price, right? I got to get $500,000. Now, does he have debt? Do you know that if he has debt on it?
Well, he needs to get a little bit more. I think he was into it a little bit more, but I mean, he has an agent representing him at like $699,000. She's obviously had him come to agreement that's way too much. I spoke to her personally. I had about a 30-minute conversation and just kind of got a background about the guy. But I don't think there's any debt into the actual property except just, paying taxes. But yeah, they won't let anybody knock it down, the city, unfortunately. They do want to restore it to maybe a bed and breakfast or a coffee shop. I think it was actually a coffee shop before at one point in time. It was functioning as something you guys might have known, probably lived in the area longer than I have, but it was functioning as a commercial. It is multi-zoned as well, so I don't know if it could ever be a residence again or not. It's gutted all the way down to the studs. He just didn't want to update, everything pretty much. So it's going to need everything updated. Of course, it's just so old, over 100 years old, I believe.
Right. Andy, what's your take on the thing?
It used to be a tea house where women would go and have crumpets and all that kind of stuff.
Tea house, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And obviously, it's way too much money. You actually, from my own experience in this town, with the right engineers, you can actually get it torn down. We were one of the first that were able to get an old house built in like 1910 torn down just because it was a structural issue. You couldn't, you just couldn't, it wasn't the money you would spend. You got the historical committee to agree that there was, and we were the first ones to be able to get that done in this town. And since then, I think another historical house has been taken down because of a structural issue. So there's precedent that can be done. Now, these weren't commercial; these were homes.
Right.
So I'm not sure. And the goal would be is you would go back to them and say, if we tear this down, what goes back up will look like an old home or look like an old whatever. That's what we did. And so. And so that's how we were able to get it passed.
Okay. So based on your take, what do you see as viable use for that building?
There's all kinds of things. I mean, I don't know if those, that L-shaped building in the back is worth anything anymore. I don't know. They used to be, as part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some pretty cool things. I mean, to me, a boarding house would be kind of nice. Because you could put a lot of people in there. It's only about 2,700 square feet or so, probably. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, it was not much. I was kind of shocked because it looks bigger than it is, and it's like
and then you could add if that building in the back, you could add a lot of rooms back there too, units. Don't know if that's what they want, but you'd have to have it rezoned. But there's a lot that can be done back there. I mean, you can do commercial back there because that little area is getting better. They're throwing money at people, but not a lot to start businesses down there. So, I mean, you could probably get something started there. I mean, there's a couple new commissioners in the town that are willing to work with people to get things going. So they're a minority in that group, but they're getting stronger.
That's good news. That's good news.
Yeah.
So, folks, that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like, sometimes you got to brainstorm these things, and a lot of it comes down to asking people in your community and then staying quiet and listening for the answers. Charles, you could, I got you muted, Charles, but you can, there's a way to skin this cat, but that's going to take you rolling your sleeves up, getting down to the city. So, and this is the problem with the wholesaler mindset. The wholesaler mindset is, I'm just going to get it under contract and flip it to Andy and let Andy deal with it. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but Andy's not going to pay attention to you if that's all you've got focused, because he's a busy guy. He's got other things going on, right? Unless you bring it to him and say, here are the plans, the engineer drawing, and here's the this and here's the that. He understands that it's not as simple as what we that are selling it to him might think, because he's been around a couple times, right? So that said, ask lots of questions in your marketplace. Here's a proper opportunity that you might be able to do something with this. You might be able to come in as an equity partner in this if it turns into an opportunity. But lots of things have to happen in the process. Okay, we need to figure out a general idea of a couple different things it could be used for, like Andy just said, some of the ideas that Andy just said. Getting down to the city and talking to those folks. They'll talk to you and saying, hey, I've got this, I see this ugly property. Before I waste the seller's time making an offer, I'm thinking I want to do this. Go through those steps, because you're going to learn more by doing the work, by actually going down there to the city, talking to them, talking to the agent, asking lots of questions. It's not about just writing up offers and firing off offers with no plan in place. That said, to some degree, you can also overanalyze it. And a perfect example of that, Andy knows the property I'm about to tell you about. There's a big boarding house on Tarpon Avenue. One with the big porch, Andy, out front.
Yep.
$100,000 that thing sold for.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Jill and I were sleeping at the Switch. It was listed by a friend of mine. He called me and said, Rob D'Andrea. Rob called me like 2 years ago, a year ago, and said, dude, you need to go look at this property. It's ideal. This will be a cash cow. So I went over there with my screw gun, and I went through every apartment in that place. It's a 10-unit boarding house from like the 1900s.
Yep.
But it needed more work than I wanted to mess with. And I closed my eyes to it. What I should have done in that case is asked more questions. But it got sold ridiculously cheap. Somebody turned it right around, and it was occupied, what, Andy, like a month or two after closing? It was occupied?
Yeah.
And now every one of them are paying rent.
Yeah. Same guy bought one across the street, too.
Oh, is that the guy who got the same one? Okay.
Yeah.
See, should have moved on that.
Mm-hmm.
But shoulda, coulda, woulda. But instead of taking these opportunities and just being quick to flip them to somebody else, be a little selfish, guys. Look at these things and go, how can I own this? And this is a lot of what we're going to talk about in the mastermind is, how can I own this? Let's look at this situation. What can I do with this? Because here's the thing. And that property in Orange Street's been for sale for, 10 years. Long time. I know that. Long time. I don't remember it ever being a tea house. I know it was a tea house, but not since I've been in Tarpon, which would have been 2006.
Yeah, probably the 80s.
Yeah.
90s, maybe 90s. Yeah.
My wife remembers it. She grew up here. I mean, she was here 1976 or something.
Yeah.
But otherwise, maybe there's some opportunity there. The bottom line is there's some dirt there. So somebody's going to do something with it. Roll up your sleeves, Charles, and figure out what is available to you there. I'll unmute you if you want to say something, but
right. No.
There you go. You're unmuted.
Okay. No, appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of why first, when I seen that, was kind of thinking more about, more or less you. I know, you might have had more ideas, and it was kind of able to give me more feedback. It definitely wouldn't be something I would be interested in, obviously, wholesaling. I mean, I love the area, like I said, since I've been up here about 4 years now, but
Right.
the historical values there, the whole town, most of the buildings are 100 years old. So if we could do something where it stays there and collaborates with the rest of the town, I would definitely be interested in seeing something like that happen. And even to, like you said, to even be an equitable partner, that would be like a dream come true. That'd be awesome to do something like that. So, I could poke around, look into it more. So it's great insight. I appreciate the feedback from you guys.
So guys, here's the LoopNet ad of the property we're talking about. The address is 118 East Orange Street. They're asking 700,000 for this thing, and it's a cool looking property. I mean,
Yeah.
all ironwork, hand done ironwork from back in the day. Let's see here. Built 1925. Tarpon was a rockin' town back then. But it's a neat
Yeah,
little
what's funny
place.
was the guy that cuts the grass. Actually, I left a business card there one day, and he called me and said, "I'm the one that cuts the grass at this property, and I know that this lady has it for sale and is trying to sell it." So, and that's the lady who's representing the actual seller. But it's been about a good year now since she's had it listed. So, there's definitely something that I would like to try to help her out with there. But.
So let's run through this real quick here. We got the Oxford Tea House, 118 East Orange. They're asking $699, listed with a realtor, right? So I know, and I know that Andy knows, the Castriotis is in Tarpon. Everybody knows them, and Maria's been around forever. That tells me she's well rooted in the community, right? I'm willing to bet that if somebody was willing to invest the time to go and talk to her, she's not going to probably be a typical realtor. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, and she said she's right down the block too. So if it's if I need to get in and see it, just give her a call. I have her cell phone, so she'll come in.
Finish what we're going on here. Hold on a minute, bud. So by looking at the ad, guys, it says to me that, well, number one, it says right here, seller is open to financing and listening to an offer with terms. That means the seller has maybe identified that there's a problem. Nobody is going to put a property out that I've seen. Like, for example, if this thing sells for, let's say, 100 grand, just to throw a number out there, I doubt you would have seen an ad on Zillow or LoopNet or anywhere else saying 100 grand. What's going to take this thing getting sold is somebody actually going to have conversations, figuring out exactly what it needs. Because when you figure out what it needs and figure out what it's going to be used for, that's going to give you baselines, guys. So let's say we're going to turn it into a tea house. Again, we're going to revive it as a tea house. So we would be looking at, from a business perspective, how much money is it going to make as a tea house? Okay, is it going to be a Starbucks, or is it going to be a tea house that has 8 people a day come in 6 days a week? So if the property only produces, say, $50,000 a year, maybe we would go to our little fancy hurdle rate and see what that says. So if the property produces gross income of $50,000 a year as a tea house, let's just say $100,000. We're going to take $100,000, and this is how my brain works. $100,000. We're going to multiply that by 1.5%. Oops. We're going to divide it by 12, first of all. And then we're going to multiply it by 1.5%. And that's going to tell us about $1 million is the most this thing. If we have to basically get it all in, repairs, rebuild, whatever we're going to do for less than $1 million for it to make sense if it generates $100,000 a year in income. It can't afford anything more than that. So if we're buying it, hold on, if we're buying it tore up for $699, that ain't going to work. Another couple factors, because prices, I don't care about what they're asking for it. What I care about is what is it going to cost us to hold on to this property while we're doing whatever we got to do. We could say, hey, we'll buy it at $699, let's say, but we all agree that it's not going to be a tea house next week. It's going to take 2 years to get it to be a tea house. And then we need a year or two to be profitable after that for this to make sense. So here's what we propose. We will buy the property from you, allow the deed to transfer. We will start making you monthly payments on this property in 5 years. Those monthly payments will be tied to the success of the business. If we are unable to continue making our payments and we fall 90 days behind, then we can come up with, here is what that will look like. The type of deal like this, you're never going to walk into the local bank and say, hey, can you give me $700,000? Hell, you couldn't walk into a bank and say, will you give me $100,000 or $50,000? The bank's going to throw you out the door. they're not going to even want to be involved in this. They're going to say, what else do you own that we can come after? Because it ain't going to be this, right? And this is where the private money and thinking outside the box makes sense. Figuring out, number one, what the one thing it can be used for, and then laser in on that, highest and best use, right? Because if you go to the city with 50 different ideas, they're going to say, come back when you've figured one out. So highest and best use, what is the highest and best use of this property? Hell, who knows? It could be a gas station. I don't know. You can have feasibility studies done to figure that out. You can pay people, professionals, to come out and do feasibility studies on properties and tell you what things are, what the highest and best use of a property is. Based on that, you can build a plan, right? And look at it like a business. You know, if I'm going to, and then one question would be, well, I don't know anything about running a tea house. Then go find somebody that does. Right down the street is the Eco Bean, little coffee shop. That girl's been running that business for a couple of years. I don't know if she's profitable or not, but it would be worth going to have a cup of coffee and having a conversation. I think Rachel's her name. She's married to the owner, one of the owners of Gauze Boats in Tarpon Springs, very successful boat manufacturer. There's possibly an access for some private capital. How about that? See how this starts to unroll? First, you go for a cup of, you figure out it's a tea house. And then you go talk to the coffee shop, local coffee shop owner, who probably has a whole bunch of people that could help think tank this thing, brainstorm this thing. And she happens to be married to a guy who builds boats, who either is probably doing okay, considering he makes some really badass boats, or knows people that might be able to help fund this project, who's probably really well connected because the Gauzes have been around Tarpon Springs since they're forever, right? They know everybody.
Yeah.
And this is how you start to bring a deal like this together, one step at a time. So Charles, you want to get free, man? Take it on as a project and see what you can come away with it. At the end of the day, even if you don't make a penny off of this deal, the education you get from this will be awesome. I mean, that's how you crush it. So, Erm, you got the address, right? 118 East Orange. That said, guys, when you're looking at these things, you're using the time that you would be spending in some weekend guru boot camp. Because if you're going to go spend 16 hours at the local Rich Dad conference, your 16 hours would be much better spent down at the city of Tarpon Springs, talking to them and figuring out how you can solve this problem. One thing I do know about the city of Tarpon Springs that we find them quite easy to work with. A lot of people don't like to work with them. We don't have a problem with them.
No.
I don't know about you, Andy, but I like the fact that people think that.
Yeah, I think in that property, you could go to them and say, okay, I'm looking at this property. What is it you'd like to see in Tarpon Springs, a business that you would like to see?
Boom.
And they'd be 100% behind you if you're able to figure out that you could do that.
What else will they do for you, Andy, that we both know will happen if they're behind a project and they want it to happen?
Oh, they'll put themselves behind the permits. They'll help.
They'll fund the project with grant money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They will do that.
Yep. They'll help you with grant.
Yeah.
They'll introduce you to people that might want to invest in this.
Yep.
Because, guys, at the end of the day, here's the thing about government. Government, everybody there is either appointed or elected or tied to somebody that is, which means everybody really kind of wants to make sure that continues to happen because they like working for government. So like Chris, our mayor, Chris would probably want to run again.
Yeah.
So if you went to Chris and come up with an idea that would make Chris look good, Chris would be all over that because that's going to help him get elected. See,
Yeah.
And the people that work with him also want to keep their jobs. So, kind of applying some logic here and off we go. So, yeah, so that's that. So guys, I don't have anything else for you today. Jeff, I see you're here. Welcome, guys. Jeff just joined the mastermind a couple days ago. I met him over at the Larry Harbolt Never Step Into a Bank program. Larry's actually coming here today. We're working on Larry's doing a rehab course. This is a re-release.
Oh.
We're recording the videos here in the studio today. We've been doing the videos. But today we're doing it again, probably another episode of his podcast. So he'll be here all day, which means I get extra education. I love it when Larry comes to the office. I feel like I'm stealing because he comes here and I get like an intense all-day coaching session. It's awesome. So I got to buy him lunch, but he's a pretty cheap date. I take him to Queens and he's happy. Give him a chef salad. He's good to go. And his unsweet tea or his Diet Coke. But yeah, Aaron, we can take care of that. No problem. So, all right, guys. If you don't have anything, I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you guys have a great Christmas. Go out there, roll up your sleeves, look for some opportunity, start dissecting this stuff. Get out there in the field. Andy, you're going to see me all around town a lot. We're getting ready to make some moves here. So,
Oh, good. Okay.
we need to go have a cup of coffee and collaborate because we probably,
That'd be fun.
instead of both of us chasing different things, we could collaborate and chase the same thing. So,
Yep.
all right, guys, have a great day.
Thanks. Okay.